Okay, just a quick video here on my Kubota 2501 L2501. There's a lot of interest in these compact tractors. Everyone that has a homestead to manage probably wants one of these, and you may be looking, as I was a couple years ago. Bought this in 2018. Like I said, it's a L2501, 25 horsepower diesel. Did a lot of research when I was looking to make the purchase. Did all the brands, John Deere, Mahindra, and this. They all had positives and negatives, and once you went into the showroom, everyone's tractor was the best. And I think they're all pretty good. There's certainly weak spots and strong spots with all of them. For me, it came down to the Kubota and the Mahindra. The Mahindra was a little bit cheaper for an equivalent model. And I wound up finally just going with a Kubota because the dealership was a lot closer to me. So that's important for service and repair work. So I've had this 2 years and been quite happy with it. But now it's got 119 hours on it. I just had the 100-hour service done this spring. I took quite a few hours on it doing my logging project back here to get the cedar logs for my raised garden beds. But yeah, it's been a good tractor. The only issue I've had with it is last year the tachometer cable, and it's gear driven, and it has old style mechanical cable. That broke, and they replaced that under warranty, and actually they did that at the same time as the 50-hour service, so that worked out fine. But that's the only mechanical issue that I've had with it. It's of course 25 horsepower, so it doesn't have the burn sequence that the larger engines do, and that's certainly the selling point of the 25 horsepower and less diesel engines. Go over the controls. The L series is the basic model. It's kind of a bare bones, old school style tractor. No digital gauges. Just a regular analog fuel gauge, tachometer, hour meter, temperature gauge. As far as lights, you don't have many. You have the turn indicators, and then you have the battery light, glow plug, heating light. Pretty straightforward. On this side, you have the hazards. Then you have the lights and turn signal. This is the L25DT. It's the regular manual transmission, gear driven, as opposed to the HST, which is the hydrostatic transmission. Hydrostatic costs a little bit more. It's certainly easier operation. It's really good for doing back and forth work with the loader. Really efficient. This is the gear drives. In total, you have a low and a high range with the shuttle shift. So you have 8 forwards and then 4 reverse gears. The shuttle shift is a handy feature that you can just work back and forth between forward and reverse with just one shift. You still have to utilize the clutch and come to a complete stop, but it is very efficient, and I really love that setup. For me, I do a lot of mowing, so the gear drive was a good choice for me, because you just maintain constant speed, and so that works out great. You do have a four-wheel drive in here. You have the center hump on this direct drive. You don't have that with the HST. This lever here is your PTO. Activates it by pulling up. Pushing down is off. This is your differential lock. You utilize that. Just put your foot back there and push down. Lock the differential if you get stuck or in a slippery spot. You have the brake pedals, dual pedals, locked together. This is your parking brake. You push down on the brake pedal, raise up on this, let go of the brake, and that's the parking brake. Then you just push back down on the pedal to disengage it. This is your throttle, your foot throttle. And up here you have your controls for the loader. It does have a lock on it, and your quick detach hoses here. The loader is removable. I've never taken it off, but there's a procedure that you can take it off pretty quickly and reattach it without any bolts or anything of that nature. Your throttle control, and that's about it as far as your controls are concerned. It has a 10-gallon fuel tank, which is more than adequate. I can mow my property several times without needing to refill. I mow consistently about 3 to 4 acres, and a couple times a year I'll mow about 8 acres. So I don't have to fuel up very often. This is the four-wheel drive model. I would highly recommend that you get four-wheel drive. I use it pretty much all the time. This is pretty hilly, and if it's wet, especially if you're using the box blade, four-wheel drive just is almost essential. These are relatively light tractors, and without four-wheel drive you might have some difficulty, particularly if you were going to run a box blade much, or a disc, or a plow. I think you'd certainly have to have four-wheel drive. This one it came with the agricultural tires, which you can see I'm in a pretty wet environment a lot, so those are perfect for me. They work well, and they're a little bit cheaper than the industrial tires. The industrial tires are easier on your ground. They don't chew it up so bad as these with their big giant V-lugs. Looking down under the tractor, the hydraulic filter and the hydraulic block and fittings coming out are under here, so those are somewhat vulnerable. There's pretty good clearance to the ground, but they are exposed, so they can be hit with something. So that's something to consider. Then over on this side you have your oil filter and water separator, fuel filter. Here's your oil dipstick right there. And then I think one of the things that maybe one of the competitors had mentioned is that the tie rods maybe are exposed more than on others. They're in front rather than behind the axle, so it hasn't been an issue, but anything can happen for sure. And probably a standard size bucket, which seems pretty big until you actually start moving dirt or gravel, and then it suddenly doesn't seem that large. But, powerful hydraulic system. It works quite well.